Well, in the past year, diamond prices have fallen by around 7%. So a 1 to 1.5 carat diamond right now is buying around $5,000 US a carat. From there, the bigger the stone, the bigger the price. But given that diamonds are simply carbon compressed for thousands of years in nature, it was only a matter of time before science tried its hand to create their own. Ed Boyd tried to find out this week if these manufactured diamonds are going to interfere in the market for one of the most valuable and sought-after gemstones.
The company was really founded on a charms and bracelet concept, which we refer to as the moments. So essentially, people buy a bracelet, then they buy individual charms which they collect, and these charms typically represent something important in their lives, and that business is roughly 70% of our business. And to put this a little bit in context, so in a year we will sell roughly 100 million pieces of jewelry, of which 50 million are charms. So this is really the heart of our business.
You've got about 124 stores in Australia. Our population's 26 million. Is there much room for expansion here still, or are you kind of at the limit?
I think since Australia has been running for such a long time, I think we have a pretty good coverage in Australia, honestly. And of course, also with the entry of e-commerce, essentially anybody that really has access to some kind of computer or phone can access the brand. So I think we're quite well established here.
Looking at your quarterly results, I noticed Australia was mentioned, showing sales were down 5%. Is there a big difference between the Australian consumer and what their lack of spending compared to the rest of the world?
So when I joined Pandora 4 years ago, when you looked at the world, it was all kind of one of the same. So there was much easier to explain what was going on because we had low inflation rates pretty much across the globe, pretty low unemployment rates, and so forth. So when something moved somewhere, you could say, oh, it's this variable. After the pandemic, really, you have to look at each individual country to say, or try to understand from a macro standpoint what's going on, but also the position of your brand strength, because those two things can kind of work together somehow. So there is no one simple answer. What I observe is that Europe is probably 1 year ahead when it comes to, let's say, mortgage rates and inflation. So a lot of the conversations you're having in Australia at this moment in time, we typically had 1 year earlier in Europe. So you're kind of one step behind. US, they kind of run their own show somehow, so it's not comparable really. What I see globally is that the jewelry market as such is probably in negative territory. So the fact that we posted a +5 in the quarter and flat or +2 in the previous quarter actually suggests that we are growing share pretty much everywhere. So there are some differences.
And what's the outlook for the rest of this year globally for Pandora?
So if you listen to the macroeconomists, of which one I'm not, not much seems to be changing. Maybe, we look at things like consumer sentiment, which of course is claimed behavior. There is some slight pickup in UK as an example. But actually, if I look at all the other macro financial, let's say, diagnostics in the UK, they don't suggest that there should be a pickup. So I don't know if this is just a psychology thing. It's like, okay, now we've had a tough time for long enough, let's just go to a better place somehow. So, but from a macro standpoint, I think it kind of looks pretty much the same.
Now you're launching lab-grown diamonds. What's the big opportunity here with lab-grown diamonds?
So first of all, if I look at the global jewelry market, it's roughly $260 billion, depending a little bit which source you look at. But let's take that as a fact point. Out of that, roughly 85 is diamonds. Out of the 85, today there's an estimate that roughly 10% is believed to be lab-grown diamonds. Now that 10% is very differently distributed across the globe. Vast majority of that is in the US, where the US consumer is, I think, ahead on the curve when it comes to awareness of this idea of what a lab-grown diamond is. Then UK is coming on stream. Those are kind of the two markets where we went first. And in Australia, we feel that it's about to pick up speed as well. So that's one dimension, that there's some level of awareness of this proposition. On top of that, Pandora as a brand is very strong in Australia. We have a very strong organization, as we spoke about. We have a very good distribution network. So put these things together. So it's an important market for us. It's an important diamond market in general, globally speaking. And we think that the lab-grown diamonds is now ready to kind of grow at a good clip here.
Real diamonds out of a mine really go up and down a lot with inflation and rising costs. What about lab-grown diamonds?
Okay, so I just need to correct you. All diamonds are real, okay? And it's a very important point because the end game is a 100% carbon product. How you get there are a couple of different routes, but what you end up with is it's either a diamond or it's not a diamond. So there's no difference, okay?
And what does the price point for these diamonds compare to one that's mined out of the ground?
So typically, so this is a 1 carat set in 14 karat gold. So this would be 2,900 Australian dollars. Typically, this is a third or thereabouts in terms of versus a mined branded diamond.
Mm-hmm. And just talk to me about the carbon process in creating these diamonds compared to the other diamonds in the market.
Correct. So if you take a 1 carat diamond from the ground, you're going to need something like 160 kilos of CO2. That's the emission profile. When we do it in the method we use, which is called chemical vapor deposition, it's roughly 5% of that, so it's less than 10 kilos. So it's a massive difference. The production method is essentially, you can think of it as a very simplified version. I'm not a scientist, but essentially it's a big microwave oven. And the input to that is electricity and a bit of gas. And that kind of chemistry then creates the diamond, layman's explanation.
And are they lab-grown diamonds now really disrupting the global diamond market?
So it depends on what we mean by disrupting, okay? So there's some fear from the people that are kind of running the mined business. But in reality, with the type of price tag that you have to go through to buy a mined diamond, I'm not really speaking to the same audience. A Pandora customer is an average household. Today, they might aspire to own a diamond, but they can't really. It's out of reach for most of my customers. When we come into this play, we can of course pass on the efficiency of this new technology, because it's a technology breakthrough, which we don't talk a lot about, which comes at a much lower production cost. Therefore, the value that we offer is of something very different. So if you actually zoom out and think a little bit broader about that, is on a good day, you could argue that actually we're going to expand the total diamond space. I'm not going to convince somebody that is kind of going to the high-end luxury brands to come into Pandora. That's not really who I'm after. I'm offering this idea to the existing Pandora customer, and that's also the typical customer that is buying it from what we've seen in the other countries where we've launched.
Alexander Lacik from Pandora, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.